Margaret had been married to David for 32 years. They lived in a modest two-story home in suburban Connecticut, the kind of house where memories settled into the walls like dust. Their son, Tyler, was 28 now, still living at home while he figured things out. Margaret was a woman of routine. Every morning, she made coffee at 6:30. Every evening, she prepared dinner by 5. She kept the house clean, the bills paid, the garden tended. David worked long hours as an accountant, coming home tired but pleasant enough. They had fallen into the comfortable rhythm that long marriages often do, but comfort can hide many things. It started on a Tuesday afternoon in late September. Margaret had come home early from her volunteer shift at the library. The house was quiet, too quiet. She set her purse on the kitchen counter and noticed Tyler's car wasn't in the driveway, though she could have sworn she heard movement upstairs. She climbed the stairs slowly, her hand on the railing. The bedroom door was closed. She opened it. David was there, but he wasn't alone. The woman was younger, perhaps 40, with dark hair spread across Margaret's own pillows. They scrambled, grabbing at sheets, fumbling for words that wouldn't come. Margaret didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply stood there, her face a mask of stone, and then she turned and walked away. Down the stairs, out the door. She drove to her sister's house and stayed there for 3 days, ignoring David's calls, his texts, his desperate voicemails. When she finally came home, Tyler was there waiting. He hugged her tightly, this boy who had grown into a man while she wasn't looking. David had told him everything, hoping their son might somehow bridge the gap between them. Mom, Tyler said softly, I'm so sorry. Margaret patted his hand. It's not your fault, sweetheart. But something had changed in her. Something had hardened. The weeks passed. David begged for forgiveness. He swore it was over, that it had meant nothing, that he would do anything to make it right. Margaret listened with that same stone face and said she needed time to think. What she was really doing was planning. She began leaving the house more often, saying she needed space to clear her head. David didn't question it. He was too busy trying to prove himself worthy of a second chance. What he didn't know was that Margaret was meeting with a lawyer, quietly separating their finances, moving money into accounts he couldn't access. And then there was the basement. Their basement was unfinished, dark, accessible only through a heavy door in the kitchen. They rarely used it except for storage. But Margaret had been going down there lately, organizing things, she said, making room. One Friday evening, Tyler came home angry. Margaret was in the kitchen preparing dinner when he stormed through the door, his face flushed with rage. You'll rot in here, he screamed at her, his voice breaking with emotion. You'll rot in here. Before she could react, he grabbed her arm and shoved her toward the basement door. She stumbled, confused, terrified. Tyler pulled the door open and pushed her inside. She tumbled down the first few steps, catching herself on the railing. The door slammed shut. She heard the lock click. Tyler, she shouted, scrambling back up the stairs. Tyler, what are you doing? Let me out. But there was only silence. She pounded on the door until her fists ached. She called his name until her voice went hoarse. The basement was cold and dark, illuminated only by a single dim bulb that hung from the ceiling. There were boxes of old belongings, a broken washing machine, cobwebs in every corner, and no food. Hours passed, then a day. Margaret's throat burned with thirst, her stomach cramped with hunger. She couldn't understand what had happened, why her own son had done this to her. Had David told him something? Had they planned this together? She tried to stay calm, to think clearly. There had to be a way out, but the basement had no windows, no other exits. The door was solid oak, the lock strong. On the second day, she heard footsteps above. Tyler, she screamed, please, let me out. We can talk about this. No response. She collapsed on the cold concrete floor and wept, not just for her current situation, but for everything. For the betrayal she'd witnessed in her own bed. For the years she'd given to a man who could discard her so easily. For the son who had turned against her. But then, something shifted in her mind. A memory. Something Tyler had said when he was screaming at her. Wait, she replayed it in her head. You will rot in here, not you will rot down there, he'd said in here, and suddenly, she understood Tyler hadn't been talking to her. He'd been talking to David. She stood up slowly, her legs shaking. She looked around the basement with new eyes. In the far corner, behind the old washing machine, she saw something she hadn't noticed before. A sleeping bag, empty water bottles, granola bar wrappers. Someone had been living down here. Her hands trembling, Margaret moved the washing machine aside. Behind it was a small space, and in that space was a note. She recognized Tyler's handwriting immediately. Dad, it read. You need to understand what you've done. You need to feel what Mom felt. Trapped, helpless, betrayed. I'll let you out when you're ready to be honest. Really honest. Not just sorry because you got caught. Margaret's breath caught in her throat. Tyler had locked David in the basement, and somehow, in the chaos and confusion, David must have gotten a message to Tyler, claiming he'd locked Margaret in instead. She heard footsteps again, running this time. The lock clicked. The door flew open. Tyler stood there, his face white with panic. Mom? Oh God, Mom! He saw her and froze. Well, I got Dad's message. He said you'd locked him in the house without food, that you'd gone crazy, that where is your father now? Margaret asked quietly. He's at a hotel. He texted me an hour ago saying you'd finally let him out of the house, that you'd been keeping him prisoner upstairs, that he barely escaped. He said you were dangerous, that I needed to stop you before. Tyler's voice broke. Mom, what's happening? Margaret climbed the stairs slowly. She put her hand on her son's cheek. Your father, she said, is a liar. But you already knew that. Tyler's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I thought if he felt what it was like to be trapped, to be helpless, maybe he'd finally understand what he'd done to you. But then he got out somehow, and he said what he needed to say to turn you against me. Margaret's voice was calm now, steady. That's what betrayal looks like, Tyler. It doesn't just happen once. It keeps happening. It grows. It spreads. Tyler pulled her into his arms, sobbing. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Margaret held her son and looked around the kitchen she'd cleaned 1,000 times, the home she'd maintained for 3 decades. And she realized something. She didn't want revenge. She didn't want David to suffer. She just wanted to be free. A week later, Margaret filed for divorce. David tried to claim she'd been unstable, that she'd attacked Tyler, that she'd been the one causing problems all along. But Tyler told the truth. He told the lawyers, the mediator, anyone who would listen about what his father had done, about the lies, the manipulation, the affair. The divorce was finalized by spring. Margaret got the house. She also got her dignity back. Tyler moved out eventually, finding his own place, his own path. But he visited often, bringing flowers for the garden, helping with repairs, making sure his mother was never alone unless she wanted to be. And Margaret learned something in that dark basement, in those hours of fear and confusion. She learned that love and kindness don't always protect you from betrayal, but they do give you the strength to survive it. She learned that revenge is empty, but truth is powerful, and she learned that sometimes the basement door closes so that you can finally find your way out into the light.